saving America one mind at a time. This is Smith Radio. And now, your hosts, Carrie and Brian Smith.
Much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life.
Does Trump make you feel like you're crazy? That's the impression I'm getting.
Oh my God, are you calling me crazy?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smith Radio. Brian Smith and
Carrie Smith.
Usually we give you the breaking news of all the last week. We wrap it all up, make sense of it all. We kind of break it down into tidbits and little digestible pieces so that it makes sense, and we give you our take on it. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where the news media, mainstream media, the lying media, whether it be CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, and now our former favorite show, Fox, God bless them, to the wayside. Fox News also has their fake news, especially Shep Smith.
You call us fake news and put us down like children and
Yeah, that's Shep Smith on Fox News. God bless him. And so what we do is we find all those nuggets, those golden little tidbits that they like to hide on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we expose the media as who they are, the fake news, whether it be the Washington Compost, as we like to call it here, which they did a doozy this week with Donald Trump's son-in-law, Kushner. Is it Kushner or Kushner?
Kushner. I think you're thinking of Ashton.
Kutcher.
Kushner. Kusher. Well, whatever.
Ashton Kutcher Moore. He hyphenated his name for his... No. I'm just joking, folks. So what we like to do is we like to have a lot of fun with it. We will laugh at... Kushner. We will laugh at the media. We will laugh at the things. We don't take it seriously, because if you take politics too seriously, folks, it's going to make you frustrated and upset. You're going to pull your hair out. You're going to go bald too early, and you're going to lose your mind. We don't do that here. We give it to you plain Jane, straightforward. And here's a place where you can come to, you can relate to us, you can understand what we're talking about, and find a home. And please share us with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter. We're all over the place. There is almost not a social media outlet that's fairly popular in America that we are not on. It's SMYTH, Smith Radio, on Facebook, on Twitter, YouTube. Our YouTube channel is pretty big. And we broadcast live every Sunday evening, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker. I know, it's misspelling of speaker. So I made it a quick link for you to get there. smithradio.info will take you directly to our live show Sunday evening, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. If you want to be a part of the show, you can call in 513-888-1538. And if it's Sunday evening, go to smithradio.info and you can be part of the chat, the message board that we have live, where we can interact with you, and you can ask your questions, and we kind of, if they're relevant and if they're pertinent, if they're entertaining to us, we'll talk about it. We'll bring it up. We'll answer your questions. With that be saying, the reason why this is a special show, obviously, tomorrow is Memorial Day, and today was the Indy 500. And Carrie being a Marine Corps veteran, myself being an Air Force veteran,
Wow, what happened there? There you go. Wow. Interesting.
We're
veterans.
We're veterans, and we've talked about this many times, and a lot of times we've got a lot of new listeners, and we want to take a moment and just kind of explain who we are, where we come from, and what we're doing here. For about 10 years, for the past 10 years, Carrie and I have been talking on and off, and it might have been a little bit more than that. It might be around 07, 08, where we would talk on the phone about politics. Oh, no, especially at 08. That's when we started to lose our minds. And we would talk on the phone for about 3 hours every night, sometimes more, sometimes 5 hours. We've had marathon conversations that just lasted through the night. There have been times where I'd fall asleep on Carrie while I was talking. And
what?
Vice versa.
Come on.
Well, no, not fall asleep as that it was boring. I mean, after a 5-hour conversation and with 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes, you know.
Right. I'm the best way to get some sleep, right?
No, but so we decided, you know what? We need to find the technology, and we need to take our information and we need to record it in a way that we can broadcast it. We originally started doing this for our children and for our grandchildren so that we could archive these ideas. We could archive this history. We've been doing this now on Smith Radio officially. We are in our 4th year, and Memorial Day actually is almost like an anniversary for us, because Memorial Day we'd been on the air, I think, 2 official times, and our 3rd show was...
Yeah, because I feel like we started in April.
Yeah,
like
and we did a couple test runs, and our official big show, if you would, was Memorial Day in May 4 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so from then, we just kind of gradually progressed, and it wasn't about reaching the masses at first. Like I said, it was about getting this information down, talking about the things that nobody wants to talk about in the media anymore. And this is before anything was called fake news media, or really very fake news. Before anything like that came out, we were talking about it.
Changing it from fake news, though. Very fake news.
Before that came out, we were calling it out for what it was. And we were talking about the things that they weren't talking. They were trying to hide from everyday Americans. They were trying to hide from our children, like the word communism.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I mean, we had an author on our show from Australia that wrote a book about communism live and well in America, and how he from Australia is exposing the underlyings and
Was he New Zealand?
Cancer.
Might have been New Zealand. Was he from New Zealand? Trevor
Loudon?
Yeah. I think he might be from New Zealand, but it's close enough.
Yeah.
It's close to, I mean,
they're both down under.
They're both down there.
But the whole thing was, he even said on our show, he's like, man, we look to you because you're the last hope. There's nothing after America falls. There's nothing left.
Yeah, it was very interesting the way people see us from around the world. You know, we're a little bit spoiled because we grew up here, and sometimes we take what we have for granted.
Absolutely.
And that's and the thing about Memorial Day is that what we're really honoring is the people who fought for this idea of America that we try our hardest not to take for granted, which is so great about Memorial Day, is that we get a chance to remember the greatness of America, and that it is worth fighting for, and that those who did fight for it should be honored.
And people that say that, and it's kind of weird sometimes. Carrie and I have talked about this, that when people say, thank you for your service, guys. You guys are heroes.
I didn't like it at first.
I still kind of feel a little weird about it, because he and I, if you're in the military, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not in the military, then here, please listen, because, and don't take it any different. We're all the same, but just understand that we were not in combat. We did not see the front lines of war. And I think there's a difference between, because I looked at those guys as real heroes.
You know, I used to not think I was a vet.
Right?
Seriously, it wasn't until I was out for a couple of years where people were starting to talk about veterans, and I was like, am I a veteran? I don't know. Because we grew up with Vietnam War veterans,
right,
and
our grandfather,
World War II veterans.
Yep.
Well, when we were little kids, everybody's grandfather, literally, I cannot stress this enough for those of you that are young. For those of you who are our age or older, know exactly what we're talking about. There were nobody that was our grandparents' age that was not a World War II vet. They were literally all World War II vets. So I looked at them, and those were veterans. And then people my dad's age were either Vietnam War veterans or they weren't in the service. It was one or the other. Right. Either they didn't serve or they're Vietnam War veterans. So when I came along to serve, it was during peacetime and everything, but we were kind of like, or me personally, I was like, am I a vet?
When Desert Storm was still in...
You got to touch the mic. Yeah, there you go.
Desert Storm was technically... I don't know what's going on. Desert Storm was technically still in play. We were still at war in Desert Storm, but...
Yeah, the people that trained us.
But it was over, but technically, it was still going on, and we both got ribbons for it. I served overseas, and I was a machinist for aircraft, working on F-16s. Carrie was a mechanic working on the Harrier jets.
Yeah, aircraft mechanic.
So we were ground support, if you will. I mean, I was in a maintenance squadron, and I don't know what they call it.
We called us air wingers.
Okay. They called us a maintenance squadron.
Okay.
But
see, ground support was its own thing.
That's why I mentioned, yes, that's why I just stopped myself. Age, aerospace ground support, Aegis, they worked on, they were not allowed to touch aircraft.
No, they weren't. They worked on the equipment that helped work on the aircraft.
Right.
So you got your
jack stands.
That and also the motorized stuff like a tug.
Oh, bomb loaders,
tugs. Also the generators. I don't know what they've called.
We called them high packs and low packs.
Okay. They also had these things that
APUs.
Those, but didn't they have something that blew out air to like a lot of air in order to start certain engines? There were some aircraft that the only way to start the engine was to blow air into it, and so they had these things you would hook up. It was like a big diesel motor, and you just start it up. And anyway, all that kind of equipment that required power that you'd tow around in a tow truck or whatever, that's all ground support equipment.
And then I had buddies that worked in the office and did help do office work and things like that. And then there were other friends I knew that in the Air Force, the police in the Air Force are referred to as security police, SP.
It was MPs for us.
Military police.
Right.
And I believe same in the Army is they're referred to as MPs. But, all the different nuances and the different things in here and there. And there were guys who worked in the bomb dump, and we made fun of them because they were going to have a really good career when they got out.
I guess. I don't know. But they couldn't have been worse off than me because I decided not to move to aircraft maintenance hub.
We were at the Indy 500 today, and we actually were talking about it. They had a huge bus. This is the second year they've done this, and it's absolutely incredible. They had a huge bus. When I say bus, RV.
It was a truck. He called it a truck.
Yeah, but it was all set up with an awning and fans and little snacks and drinks for military veterans to stop by and hang out.
If you catch us on Twitter at Smith Radio, you could probably find the video on our Periscope feed.
Right, and so we just got to talking to him, and he was explaining to us all the things that the programs that were available, the things that they're trying to make available to military personnel when they come out of the military, where they're to go. Carrie and I have been talking about this. Folks, the high rate of suicide amongst military personnel getting out of the military, the very, very simple reasons why. And it didn't.
It's complicated.
It is complicated, but it kind of dawned on me that, oh, right, I understand this now. We're working on $40 million aircraft. We're on the flight line. We got lives in our hands at any given moment, at any given time. Some people had jobs that were so much more technical, so much more high level than mine. And then after 4 years, you get out and you'll never see that kind of responsibility.
Not easily. Not easily.
If you do, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird. I talked to several people about this. I'd always felt like I kind of knew what the problem was, but it just solidified it completely when I was watching the original First Blood. And at the very end, which is Rambo, for those of you who don't know. First Blood is the Rambo movie, but the first one was called First Blood. And the second one's called Rambo, First Blood Part 2.
Okay, when you say colon, you mean the dots.
The two dots.
Okay.
Not Rambo's colon. So, that at the very end of the movie, there is a monologue where he's really kind of freaking out, and Colonel Troutman's in there telling him he needs to give it up. He needs to put his gun down. He needs to stop fighting. It's over. The place is surrounded. You have no way to get out of this. You just need to just give up.
Sylvester Stallone was in the Special Forces, came back, fell into a bad situation in this small little podunk town, and so they called his colonel up to come talk him down, talk him out of this mental war he was still fighting physically fighting at the abuse of these cops in this small town. So it was a really interesting dichotomy, and it was a good movie. It shed light on when he's looking at wires. Wow.
I don't know. I got 2 wires, and I don't know which one goes to which.
I don't know.
Anyway, so at the end of the movie, he does this monologue where he basically loses it on his old supervisor, Colonel Troutman, and tells him that that there's nothing for him anymore. But when he was in Vietnam, he had all this stuff that he was responsible for, and it was really important, and his life was important, and all this stuff was important, and now he can't even hold down a job at. I got it right here.
Oh, okay, you got it plugged in. All right.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you're looking at the same one I'm looking at. Let's see if I can play this thing.
Yeah, that's the exact same one.
Go ahead. You crazy son of a bitch!
So this is Rambo about to kill the cop.
Don't do it.
And that's Colonel
Listen to me,
Troutman telling him
Rambo.
not to do it.
You have no chance. Drop your weapon. I'm going to order the chopper in and fly you back to Bragg. Hold your fire!
So shooting at him. Let me pause it real quick to give you a little background. So he's a Vietnam War veteran. He's walking through Pennsylvania trying to find one of his old buddies from his Special Forces unit from when he was in Vietnam, and his family tells the family.
Well, he finds the family. Yeah, he actually finds the family.
And they said he died, and he died from Vietnam-related Agent Orange, some sort of cancer or something like that. And so they blamed Vietnam on his death. But anyway, he's upset, and then they mistreat him really bad in this town. The cop does.
Yeah, he's I hate to say it, but it's this typical hippie Vietnam homeless guy, sort of.
Well, he has long hair.
Right.
And this guy, back in the late 70s, early 80s, that was frowned upon because of the hippie era. There was a real problem with the old authority and hippie era stuff. So they were definitely mistreating him, and then they end up arresting him because he didn't leave the town, and then they just really beat on him when they arrested him, and it was just a mess. But this is the end. They're surrounding him. They're going to arrest him.
Hold your fire! Hold your fire!
His colonel is trying to get him to.
The building's perimeter's covered. No exit. There are nearly 200 men out there and a lot of M16s. You did everything to make this private war happen. You've done enough damage. This mission is over, Rambo. Do you understand me? This mission is over. Look at him out there. Look at him! If you don't end this now, they're going to kill you.
There's tons of cop cars and tons of weapons, tons of everything.
Now, this is the part where Rambo explains pretty much what the problem with all veterans is.
It's over!
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off! It wasn't my war! You asked me, I didn't ask you! And I did what I had to do to win, but somebody wouldn't let us win! And I come back to the world, and I see all those maggots at the airport protesting me, spitting, calling me baby killer and all kinds of vile crap. Who are they to protest me, huh? Who are they? Unless they've been me and been there and know what the hell they're yelling about.
It was a bad
So real quick, he was talking specifically in reaction to what Vietnam War veterans experienced right after the war. That does not apply generally. That's just for people who were in the Vietnam War. I didn't experience that, so that's not exactly what I'm talking about. But he really gets down to the nitty-gritty in this next part. But yeah, if you're a Vietnam War veteran, and
or if you've seen combat any form or fashion. If you've seen combat.
Well, Vietnam War in particular, because they were mistreated by all the civilians when they got back. They got protested at the airports. They got spat upon.
It might have been one of the first wars that we actually, it's probably the second war, but the first war that we fought not to win. Korean War.
Well, they got
maybe
the double
we fought that
whammy.
to not win either.
They got the double whammy because the hippies hated them for being warmonger, baby killers.
Right.
The adults, the older people, the fathers and grandfathers of the World War II vets and stuff like that from back then, they disrespected them because they lost a war. So there was like this double whammy. But the government certainly didn't do them any favors. But that aside, the Vietnam War veteran part aside, listen to this next part. This is critical because this applies generally to all veterans, no matter whether you served in war, not war, peacetime, doesn't matter. Check this out.
Kind of funny Democrats get us into these wars.
It's all in the past now.
For you! For me, civilian life is nothing.
Civilian life.
In the field, we had a code of honor. You watch my back, I watch yours. Back here, there's nothing.
You're the last of an elite group. Don't end it like this.
Back there, I can fly a gunship. I can drive a tank. I was in charge of $1 million equipment. Back here, I can't even hold a job. Fucking cars!
I can't even hold a job parking cars. He was in charge of tanks, gunships. He could fly a gunship, which is a helicopter, by the way, and multi-million-dollar aircraft that he was in charge of. By the way, he doesn't say this, but in charge of a lot of people. If you get corporal in the Marine Corps, they'll put you in charge of 20 people, just like that. And that's a corporal. That's only an E4. That's a fourth rank from the bottom.
Senior, and that would be a senior airman in the Air Force. And it's similar. You're one step away from staff sergeant, which would be the boss of the entire shop. But certainly a senior airman, you go to airman leadership school, and you're in charge of the new guys, the new airmen that come in to help them and help raise them up the right way.
Yeah, now can't even hold down a job parking cars, is what he said. Man. Seriously, he can't even walk through a town without being told he's got to leave. So let's see what else he says.
I can't. Oh, God. Where's everybody? God, I had a friend. Was the Air Force.
Okay, this part, we could probably just stop it here because at this point he talks about specifics about when he was serving, which is where one of his friends was blown up. And you know, people that served in Afghanistan and Iraq probably experienced a lot of this with the EIDs and stuff like that, where somebody gets blown up and then they have to go and go in there, and it could be a friend of theirs that's blown up. That kind of stuff I didn't experience, and I think most people serve probably don't experience the real horrors of actual bad combat like that. Maybe some of the people that, like your World War II veterans, and you got your Vietnam, and then you got like the Afghanistan, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people that serve in between all that stuff, and maybe not in an actual infantry position. Like Brian would be in the Air Force, he'd be working on planes, maybe even in a building.
Fully heated, air conditioned shop.
Right. And then like for me, I was in a hangar. So it wasn't air conditioned or anything like that. And we were going in and out between the flight line and the hangar, but it was like, we're not in infantry position. But, so he gets into that kind of stuff. But the most critical part, that one line in there where he talks about how he's in charge of a bunch of people, bunch of multi-million-dollar aircraft. He could fly around in a multi-million-dollar gunship. He gets back to civilian life, and he can't even hold down a job parking cars. Here in civilian life, there's nothing. There's nothing. Right. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a huge insight that I think people overlook. The problem with American society is that they got this goofy, stupid idea. I don't know where it came from, but it's the reason why we lose 22 vets a day to suicide. I promise you, this is it. If you ever wanted to know, if you ever wondered what's going on, it's not because they're shell shocked. It's not, which is a problem. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a problem, but that's not what's causing these people to kill themselves. What's causing them to kill themselves is they went from having so much responsibility to having not only people in general, but the government saying, not only do we think you can do this, but we expect you to do this.
Right. And we did it without question. And we did it to the best of our abilities.
And we know you could do it, because if you don't, we're going to punish you because we knew you could do it. Now get your ass out there and do it. And it could be something where lives are on the line. I'll never forget the first time I had to remove and replace a component on an aircraft. When I got to the squadron, I remember thinking to myself, man, I wonder if I'll actually get to work on an aircraft by myself, that's going to fly. It never dawned on me that that's actually what I was going to be doing,
right?
Because I didn't think that they would ever trust me to do something like that. And day one, they were like, go out there and replace that refuel valve. And I'm just like, on an aircraft that's going to fly? And so they sent me out there, and for the most part, I think I was completely by myself on the flight line. And I did it. I pulled a part out of an aircraft that would have, if that plane had flown at that moment, it would probably fall out of the sky and kill whoever was in it and whoever was near it.
Right.
And then replacing it, if I had done it wrong, probably the same result. And then after it was done, I had a CDI, which is a collateral duty inspector, come take a look at it, make sure that the bolts were tight.
Right. You had somebody come on and sign off on it. Either senior, for us, it'd be a senior airman or staff sergeant, one of the two, something like that.
Yeah. And they would look at it and they would say, yeah, okay, everything looks good. Safety wires on properly.
Right.
All right. Signed off. You're good to go. Let's plop a pilot in this thing. And it was flying the same day. And I was just like, oh man, this is serious. It's a $40 million aircraft.
My first day on the job, driving our vehicle on the flight line, stopping and walking around, checking the tires for little baby rocks, make sure they're not in the tires so that we can drive onto the flight line, learning how to drive around aircraft, you're like, oh wow, you drive cars on a flight? Yeah. Yeah, and you could wreck something. You could kill something. I mean, you could do a lot of damage with a vehicle on the flight line. You just don't just get in it and just start, right. And there's no stoplights. There's a lot of things that you have to know when you drive on the flight line.
We used to have to get on the Motorola walkie-talkie, and there were certain places you could not cross onto without getting prior clearance from the tower.
Yes.
And you had to be able to call them properly. You had to be able to use the walkie-talkie properly, with the proper protocol and everything like that, or else you couldn't go past these certain lines because you had to sometimes go across a runway.
Right.
And you had to get clearance from the tower to do that. But anyway, so there, we had to learn how to do all this stuff, and you are thrown out to the wolves. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
So we get back to civilian life.
Yeah.
What was your first job coming back?
Well, my first thought was I'm going to go to college and.
I thought go work for Delta.
Yeah. Well,
it
turns out I would have had to go to San Antonio because there was no hub any closer to me than that, which is about 1,000 or more miles away.
Picked up the Yellow Pages, looked for Lockheed Martin. And I was going to give him a call.
I could have gone and worked for. That's so weird the way that just randomly does that. Sorry about that, folks. Well, I could have flown to San Antonio, looked for an apartment, and probably worked there. But here's the problem. After 4 years of fixing aircraft, and by the way, I got really good at it to the point where I could diagnose a problem based on something the pilot tells me it's doing. The pilot could say, oh, this light keeps coming on, or it's acting this certain way when I'm flying. I could diagnose the problem. I could troubleshoot it. We could remove and replace the right component, and then it would fly properly after that.
Right.
I mean, that's how good I got. And it takes quite a few years to get that good, but I did get that good. And you get back to civilian life, and they're like, "Oh, you want to work as a mechanic on these aircraft? Well, what you have to do is you have to have your AMP license, which is your airframes and power plants license." I was like, I don't know about airframes, but I was a power plants mechanic for 4 years.
Right.
So how do I get this license?
Right. Where do I go pay? Who do I pay?
So apparently there's this stupid program where the military works with some civilian corporation or something that allows us to get the AMP license with a shortened week-long class if we were in the right MOS, which is military occupational specialty. it turns out that after being 4 years as an aircraft mechanic working on jet engines,
You qualified for that, didn't you?
you would think.
Yeah.
And actually, I was worried about the airframes portion because I wasn't an airframer.
Right.
Turns out I was eligible for the airframes.
Oh, good.
But not the power plants.
I don't know how the hell that works, but okay, good.
I said, I know more about jet engines than anything, and you're telling me that I can't get my power plants? This is ridiculous.
And see, I worked in the machine shop, and I knew a lot about airframes.
Your cousin was an airframer, wasn't he? Or did he work on? I think he worked on jet engines.
Stephen?
Oh, I'm sorry. He did work on
Brother?
Yeah,
Your cousin.
yeah. Oh, I said your brother. Cousin. Yeah, your brother.
He worked on power plants too.
Okay, so he was eligible for the power plants, but not the airframes. But when he worked on the
A-10s.
the C-141.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't he an airframer?
Oh, that he was. He did.
He wasn't eligible for the airframes.
Oh, hell's bells. And I did a little bit of both of them, but because I was in the machine shop, I was called out to take a look at a situation, diagnose it, go to technical books that were classified books and research the situation to see what the remedy would be for, whether it needed to be replaced or if it could be fixed and how it would be fixed. And then I would tell the mechanics, this is how you fix it.
Yeah.
Or you got to pull the engine. Or they would come to my shop and they bring me 3 pieces of a part and say, it used to be one, I need another. So I'd go to the books and I'd find it and we would make another one. I did not qualify for none of it.
Yeah, that's really stupid. So what we ended up having to do was I had to call around and find out, how am I supposed to get my power plants license after working on power plants for 4 years? And they said, oh, you need to go to community college. And maybe...
They got a special class there?
Maybe if your college credits that you've already taken transfer to that community college, which they probably don't, but maybe if you're lucky and they do, then you might be able to get it in as little as a year.
Ooh. Now, telling a kid, 23 years old, that you need to go to remedial reading school for a year.
So from
it's a huge insult.
From 18 to 22, I worked on power plants. Then from 23 to 24, I got to go learn how to work on power plants. It was so convoluted. Meanwhile, I dropped chicken into the deep fryers at the Pudgy's Chicken to make money.
It's
just convoluted.
Oh, that was when I went into sales. And I worked in sales for a while.
Which is pretty much you don't get paid unless you sell something.
Yeah, so I delivered
aircraft parts.
No, they steak, seafood, and chicken.
Right.
To people's houses. Just like Icky Woods did here in Cincinnati after playing football and he blew his knee out.
Well, you know.
Gotta do what you gotta do, huh?
Right. You do have to do what you
Years and years later, I started a business on my own. I taught myself different things. I got into different things. And then all of a sudden, I fall back on an old trade, a machine shop. It's something that I'm technically good at. I like doing it. I like doing radio a lot better.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But that pays the bills now. So I'm back in a machine shop. However, if I would have, and this is what I really want to do, was to go work for FedEx. FedEx.
Really?
Yeah, FedEx Express. Because they have a machine shop there.
Okay.
Machine shop starting out $45, $50 an hour. I said, sweet, how do I get that? Oh, you need your A&P license.
Oh, God.
I'm like, to work in a machine shop? I'm not even working on aircraft. No, sorry, that's the rules here. That's how it goes.
And why is it you need the A and P license? I heard that way back in the day that wasn't necessarily the case. I don't see why you would need to know much about airframes if you work in a power plant shop in a company that has a separate airframes division.
Well, but here's the thing, Carrie. To get your A&P license, this is what you told me. When you went to the class, you had to learn how to work on wooden aircraft biplanes that the Wright brothers used to build.
Yeah, and I asked them why they had to do that, why we had to learn how to dope fabric. If you've ever been to a museum, you might see one of these wooden aircraft that have the fabric for the skin. That's what the skin's made out of, is fabric. And they would put something on it called dope.
Not weed. Dope. And not drugs either. Dope.
So dope was like this resin that you put on the fabric.
Really, folks, it's not hemp. It's not hemp. It's
right. Not that kind of resin. And you would dump it and paint this clear, dopey resin all over it. And you had to have a lot of ventilation because you probably got really high. That's why they call it dope.
Right. That's where dope comes from.
So anyway, and then it would dry, and then you would end up with a nice skin on a fabric aircraft. So I was like, why are we learning how to repair these aircraft? Well, because when you work in a private hangar and you have your license to repair an aircraft, who's to say that somebody isn't going to show up with a right flyer?
What about helicopters, Carrie? You work on helicopters?
I'm not sure what we had to do with the helicopters.
A buddy of mine was told, he said that, no, you have to learn aspects of helicopters in order to complete your AMP license. I'm like, helicopters? FedEx don't have no helicopters.
Right.
Why would I need If somebody showed up with a wooden plane, I would look at him and be like, well, I might be able to Google some information on that, but we don't do that here.
Well, you have the license to do it.
Well, if they show up with a helicopter, say Magnum PI shows up, or how about even better, not Firewolf. What was that wolf?
Airwolf?
Airwolf shows up.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, you need to work on this helicopter. Sorry, man, we don't do that here. No. Your license says you do, and the government says that you know how because they gave you this license. You do it.
You better do it.
It's like going to Midas, Auto Parts Midas, and taking a tractor trailer diesel 18-wheeler to Midas and say, yo.
They might be able to do that, by the way.
I need this engine to be completely rebuilt.
Oh, I wouldn't do that at Midas. I would not do that at Midas.
But you got your ASE certified license saying that you're automotive service excellence.
Yeah, I don't know what it's all, the whole thing's
What if you take a motorcycle to Midas and say, fix it? No, man, they don't do that.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. But here's the point. The point is that our veterans, and here's another story I'll tell you. When I was in college for engineering, they have a co-op program.
Okay.
And because of my background, I thought, we have an aircraft assembly plant here in Cincinnati. Aircraft engine assembly plant.
GE.
General Electric. They make aircraft engines in Cincinnati. I thought, I'll co-op there. That'll be pretty fun. And it was. And so while I was there, I was surrounded by all these assemblers. They called them mechanics, which was a huge insult to anybody who's ever worked on anything.
They weren't aircraft mechanics?
That's what they called themselves.
That's amazing.
They called themselves mechanics, which they assembled the aircraft engines.
I can vouch for this for Kerry because the last company that I worked for that was bought out and sold off, I worked with guys that were laid off from GE.
Oh, okay.
They were.
So none of them that I knew of were veterans of any kind.
Not only that, but they did not work at any quick pace whatsoever.
Well, because they were union. And the first thing I thought to myself is, man, if I was the CEO of this plant, the first thing I would do is start hiring veterans, 22 years old, fresh out of the military, who were aircraft mechanics, and get their butts in here to assemble these things. And I think they would love it. I mean, it might be a little bit monotonous because it's an assembly line. You put together a part of the engine, and then you move it on to the next assembly line, the next assembly stage, and then you do the same thing again. So it's like your typical assembly line, but you're working on aircraft again. I think they would have loved it. I would have even loved to have been an assembler. As a co-op in my position, I was actually more of a supervisor, which is kind of a quotation supervisor because, in the union, you're only allowed one supervisor. Nobody else is allowed to tell you what to do at all. It's union rules.
I know.
Yeah.
They would tell me stories that would just make your eyes bleed.
Right. So these guys, they'd never really done anything. They didn't have that kind of a background, but they assembled these engines at a terribly slow pace. They made lots of mistakes. They were horrible at taking any kind of direction or instructions or anything. And they were overall kind of lazy as far as I was concerned. And I was thinking, gosh, the way we did things in the Marines, working on these aircraft on a daily basis, and the way that everybody took instruction and took motivation, work faster, work slower, work more carefully. Let's not have any incidences. I mean, it was great, right? And man, if they were in there, that'd be awesome. But instead, they got these people that are, I don't know, the whole thing was convoluted. Even the bosses, we could have had a bunch of people that got out of the Marines that were sergeants or whatever. That could be the process engineers or whatever. Right. And a process engineer is like a glorified assembly line manager is what they are. And I'm like, wow. But you know what? It doesn't happen, and it never is going to happen unless something changes.
It got so bad at GE that GE wound up having massive layoffs, and they're at a fraction of the employees that they have now. Huge parts of the building completely empty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but who does the work? Who does? Like for instance, they have they build these big giant gas turbine engines that are on the ground that don't fly, that are just generators, and one would power enough electricity for 120,000 homes, like a small city. Well, who builds those? If GE is still making those, who builds those? A completely separate company, outsourced, the company I used to work for, and I would make them as a non-union employee at another company. We would make them at $120 an hour, and we would dictate the price to GE, send them back to GE, and then have the assemblers assemble them together.
Oh, so you were making modules.
And then we were making entire turbine wheels.
Oh, the parts. Yeah. You were grinding them out on the machines. You were actually creating a part out of a block of metal.
A big, giant, round disc, 6 foot in diameter.
Gotcha. Probably
about 8 inches thick, weighing anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 pounds.
None of that stuff was ever made at GE as long as I worked there. I mean... And as far as I know, it was never made there. They did some welding in some areas there. I know in the services plant, they did like metal spray and some grinding and all that kind of stuff.
We started doing more and more metal spray for GE as an outside contractor, and we did most of all the TIG welding that they needed to be done for some of the stator blades and things like that.
Okay.
As an outside, GE didn't even do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, they were doing that kind of stuff for a little while. That's more repair stuff. But like a brand new engine with new parts, different companies from around the world would make the parts, box them up, and then we would receive them all as a kit.
Right.
And then we would have the assemblers assemble it on the plant. So here's my point. These positions need to be filled by veterans. I thought that the instant I was there, and I thought to myself, gosh, I wished that they were all veterans. So that way there's this level of discipline and work ethic and stuff like that. And also an understanding between your workers and your supervisors where, you know, the relationship you're supposed to have. That's a big thing missing from civilian life. The big thing that service members learn is the relationship between supervisor and subordinate. That's a big, big part of the military life. And in the civilian world, you have your bosses and you have your workers and stuff like that. And I think that sometimes that relationship's a little bit strained, unnecessarily so, that wouldn't be the case if it was a bunch of military veterans, because they just understand it. They get it. They understand the fraternization, how it's not supposed to happen. They understand that when you're given an order, you do it unless it's immoral.
Well, and when you're fresh out, there's no sense in skipping a beat. Just keep that moving
flat
along.
Out, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing is this whole thing about depression and 22 suicides a day, homelessness, all this kind of stuff would end if we change the culture in America from thinking that you can't do anything in life without years and years and years of sitting behind a desk as an adult. Adult.
Or even years and years and years in a college atmosphere.
Which is the same thing. Oh, they're adults. I'm saying as an adult. I know it's hard to believe.
I'm sorry.
But once you
hold on. So you're telling me a 21-year-old is an adult?
Yes.
Okay. I gotta get that straight.
Actually, 18, dude.
For the last 8 years, I've been convinced that 26 is the
yeah. You got to turn at least 26. They did a survey on people, and they asked them when they thought that they really truly reached adulthood. And they had several different answers, and some of them would say, when I had my first kid, or when I finally got married, or when I finally graduated from college, or something to that effect. All of them, these are millennials, by the way, all of them were way older than 18 when they were talking about, like when their first kid, or when they got married, or when they graduated from college. They were many, many years beyond 18. So there's definitely that kind of a culture shift. But what people don't need to realize, if you're a civilian, and, you could say thank you for your service all you want, but if you really want to understand what's going on, understand this. I don't care if they're 22, and I don't care if they're 50 or 60 or 70. That person who you have learned is a veteran was responsible for more than you will ever know and ever understand. And you should just know that. Know that they had so much riding on their decisions and on their work and on their leadership. You cannot believe it. I mean, decades later, and I haven't felt like I had so much riding on just my daily operation, just the daily, what I have to do. About the closest I could come to saying, yeah, that's probably right up there, is like taking care of my daughter and raising her, and some of the decisions I have to make is probably close. But when you make a wrong decision on a lot of the decisions you have to make as a parent, it's nowhere near as consequential as like when you're in the military, where somebody could die based on a little bit of a lackadaisical, judgment, or just having a bad day. I almost lost my arm because
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. They teach you that when you're working around hydraulics, you have to clear the area when the hydraulics power up, because something can move and you could get killed, or you could lose a limb or something like that. And so I'm setting up this giant crane, and the crane is portable. It actually transforms into a trailer, so you could take it away or set it up. And when you transform it, it drops down to the ground, and it's no longer on its wheels. And then you put these legs out, and then it's like a big giant tripod thing. And this crane is used to remove the jet engine out of the aircraft. So I'm setting it up. We're going to remove a jet engine. And so I'm setting this thing up, and all of a sudden I hear the crane get powered up. So the hydraulics are getting powered up. And I knew we were setting it up, and part of the setup requires you to power up the hydraulics. And I just figured that somebody's moving something, but I'm probably okay, but I'm having a bad day, so I don't really care. That was my attitude. And I was having a bad day, and boy, it was about to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
Because basically what happened is while I was setting this crane up,
guys were goofing.
Well, before they were goofing, the reason they powered up the hydraulics was because the crane was positioned in a bad spot by about 2 inches. And those 2 inches do make a difference. If you try to pull the engine out of the aircraft and the crane's not in the perfect position, it could either tip over, or it'll start pulling the engine out of the aircraft diagonally, and it'll just get caught in there, and it'll never come out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It won't come out straight up. It'll start pulling it from the side, and it'll just get caught up in there. So the guy who was in charge was like, "Oh crap, we got to move this crane over 2 inches." It's very frustrating because to return it back into a trailer in order to move it over 2 inches is so tedious. So he starts powering it up. He starts lowering the tires to turn it back into a trailer, not realizing that I was already setting up the legs. Yeah. And my arm was directly underneath the tire, and I wasn't looking in that
And
direction.
they couldn't hear you because I was laughing too much.
Well, actually, the hydraulics are kind of loud.
Well, but the part that you were telling me, they was goofing a little bit.
Well, another thing that we do is whenever you're operating hydraulics, or just about anything, if somebody says stop, especially if they yell stop, you hands off, everything, just stop.
Right.
So as soon as I felt this tire touch my hand, I immediately yelled stop, and didn't stop right away. So I screamed stop, and then it still didn't stop. At this point, my arm is being flattened, flat as a pancake. And it was the most excruciating pain you could ever imagine. And turns out that I heard a lot of commotion, like laughing and whatever. Turns out one of them kind of, let one rip. And some of the guys standing around him, I guess, started laughing or whatever, or freaking out because of the smell of this thing. And he actually told me after the fact that when he heard me scream the first time, he thought that I had smelt it.
So we making the case the opposite of what we just made the case for.
What? That we're not responsible enough to be doing this stuff? Well, it turns out I didn't lose my arm.
No, good times.
But it almost did. But so anyway, he heard me screaming. He reversed it. My arm was flattened, but it wasn't broke, which was what saved my arm. If it broke, I would have had to have it amputated for sure. So a little bit, about a month of recovery after getting my arm smashed. But it's all good now. All my fingers operate.
Well, and let me make the point, folks. Don't think that we're here. We're not on a soapbox, and we're not screaming and yelling, and we're not we're not looking for sympathy. This isn't the point of this. The point of what we're saying is kind of the point that all us conservatives believe in. Smaller federal government, smaller rules and less regulation, less rules and regulations, something that Donald Trump promised to cut back on and cut out, which would allow companies and different businesses to hire qualified individuals right out of the military. It's just that we've got this bureaucracy that is just it's a monstrosity, and it is completely out of control.
Kekistan Rose.
Yeah, Kekistan Rose.
She pointed out that she's late to the party. We went to the Indianapolis 500 today.
Yeah, DJ T's on the line too. I gave him a heads up.
And the Indianapolis 500 went really late because there was a rare red flag, very rare, without a rain delay. It was an actual wreck that caused a red flag, which I was kind of surprised about because the wreck was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. I've seen some bad wrecks over the years.
And usually when they wreck, they'll continue to go slowly around the track, and each one of those laps actually count. With this red flag, they all stopped and parked the car in the pit.
Yeah.
Carrie and I went out and got a beer.
As soon as the wreck happened, we were like, cool, let's run. And we're down there for a minute, and it didn't occur to me until we were pretty much done with our beer that I hadn't heard the cars.
None of them were racing around, even slowly going around the track. You can still hear them. They're loud.
Yeah, when they roll by, when the whole field of 33 cars rolls by at 90 miles or 60 miles an hour, which is like pretty much what they go by when they're under caution, it's pretty loud.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me after about 20 minutes or so, 15, 20.
We went back and got another beer and then went back up in the stands.
Yeah, so like...
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so I'm like, did they red flag this thing? So anyway, to make a long story short, you're not late to the party. We didn't start this at 5 because that race went a little bit longer than usual. Last year, and maybe even the year before, we did do the show right after the race, and I think we started on time.
Yeah, we usually get back by 4:30-ish. Tonight we didn't get back till 6.
It's like 6:15 almost.
6:15.
Yeah, it was a minute.
So we were talking about and kind of discussing our military background, where we come from, the kind of things that are plaguing the military veterans after they get out of the military. So when you see a veteran, and when you thank a veteran, just keep in mind that you're thanking them for the things that they've done, the fact that they gave their time and their effort and their service willingly. I mean, I enjoyed it. I get excited about going to the Air Force. But when you thank them, you can always also think in your mind that the 4 years that they spent in the military is a lot of information, a lot of sacrifice of freedoms that an 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old is either out at college partying or doing other things. And, well, don't get me wrong, in the Air Force, we drank too. But the thing is that
we knew how to party.
We were in a real-life situation in times. And not only that, but I was stationed in Aviano, Italy, which is 45 minutes north of Venice. And there were a lot of guys that were younger than me. I went in at 21, 22 when I was in Italy. And so some of the 18, 19-year-olds that came over, man, they didn't want to leave the base. They were depressed. They were away from home. They wanted to go back. So it can be tough on you mentally. There's no question about that.
Right. I felt like I was homesick, which is really weird because one of my rationales for joining the military in the first place was I need to get the hell out of this place. Like, I was getting so sick and tired of my hometown. And it was like the instant I left, I was like telling people how great Cincinnati was, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Kekistan Rose, thank you very much for your service as well. U.S. Army Combat Network admin,
Awesome.
07 to 2011. Wow, sweet.
Army Combat Network admin. Awesome.
Good
All right.
times. So, and that's something else that there is not another show out there quite like this show. I mean, you've got a lot of single, when I say single, you got like Rush, who's by himself.
Right.
Sean Hannity by himself. I got a microphone that doesn't like me. We've got, and there's duos that go back and forth, but I don't know of a duo show that's political, that has military background, and that
I ran into
connects like us.
I ran into one. I don't know about
not possible.
But no, here's the problem though. For whatever reason, I didn't. I don't know what. I didn't write down who it was. But I did find out there was some military veteran duo that did a political show, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. But then for what I was like, I'm gonna have to remember them, and then it was gone. I can't remember them anymore. I wish I did. I'd like to
maybe you were having a dream and it was about our show.
No, I was pretty surprised. I think a lot of people don't. Well, they certainly don't have the experience that we do. It's 4 years into this thing.
Well, not and again, and if you've been listening to us before, we've been doing this literally for 10 straight years, on and off, talking together on the phone 3 to 4 hours a night.
Yeah. Nobody has the chemistry.
Well, and then when we take the trip, I told my brother, it blows his mind. When Carrie and I took the trip from Cincinnati to D.C., it's an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
In that 8-hour drive, both ways, so 16 hours total. Carrie, how many hours or how many minutes of that 16-hour trip did the radio come on and play music?
Oh, none. It never turned on. And there was never a moment of silence. Never. In fact, there was more silence on the ride home from the race today than we had we went to DC twice. That's 8 hours each way. So that's 32 straight hours on the road. And yeah, it was like nonstop. We should have recorded it. It would have been good. It would have been like a road show.
Well, and see, and we do that. I'm telling you, folks, if you ever hung out with us, we got to stop each other from doing this show because we do this stuff. And the show originally was going to be kind of a tongue-in-cheek, maybe more of an adult show. But I'm kind of glad we didn't go with that route. And Kekistan Rose, in line with what we've been talking about with military veterans, she was in charge of.
It's a he, by the way.
I'm so sorry. It's a picture of a girl.
Yeah, plus Rose. If you read down, he actually
Whoa.
said that Kekistan Rose is a reference to Tokyo Rose from World War II, which is very, very, that's clever. Very clever.
Thank you, Nettie. Nettie said, no other show like you guys. It's like I'm hanging out with you guys when I'm listening.
Awesome sauce.
And that's cool. Okay, so Kekistan Rose, it's not my job
You shouldn't be assuming gender.
Right.
Okay, no gender assumptions here.
So Kekistan Rose was in charge of $4.6 million worth of network equipment on the back of a Hummer that was lined with magnesium.
Is that so that it burns better?
So when you light that magnesium up, it
doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't stop.
You could drive it off of a pier into the ocean and it wouldn't stop burning.
I'm kind of curious. Give me a heads up on why it was lined with magnesium.
Probably for to keep it from interference. I'm just guessing. I wasn't in that line of work. But isn't it interesting that Kekistan Rose was in charge of multi-million-dollar equipment too on a Hummer?
Right.
And now,
how many of those are out there?
Now,
tons of them.
He, whatever, can't even hold a job.
Parking cars. No, just joking.
I don't know, Rose. If you didn't know, at the very beginning of the show, we It's a shame if you missed it because it was good.
Yeah,
we
go back.
pointed out why we think my theory on why there's 22 suicides a day. Military veterans, you got your military veteran homelessness, a lot of depression, poverty, and all this kind of stuff. What's the problem? Because if you look at these people in the military, they are on fire. They get a lot done. They have responsibility that most civilians don't get to see in their lifetime. And so I pointed out that that's where the depression comes from. They're actually given responsibility. They actually perform their duty honorably and very well and responsibly. And I had lives in my hand. It's as simple as that. I was removing and replacing equipment on $40 million aircraft that if I had screwed up was going to probably or have a chance of killing the pilot. And the pilot would come right out, ask me how my day was going, jump in that aircraft that I just removed and replaced a critical component on, and just fly away on it. And I get back from the Marines after doing that stuff every day, multiple times on multiple aircraft. We had 20 aircraft in our squadron.
So if you messed up, or if you had classified information somewhere else that shouldn't be else, and you got discovered by it,
because it is.
What are you playing?
Because you'd be in jail,
right?
Yeah, I mean that's the responsibilities we had. And Kekistan Rose just said, "Yes, you're correct. If the enemy overruns us, we can pop a phosphorus grenade and destroy the entire equipment."
And they can't put it out
with the magnesium. Yeah.
Those phosphorus grenades. It was demonstrated in boot camp. They put a couple ammo cans, like 4 of them, stacked on top of each other, pulled the pin on the phosphorus grenade and set it on top.
Nice.
And it melted all the way through all of it.
And another thing you can do with magnesium, if you have an old muscle car or a car that is mostly made of steel, take a chunk of magnesium and bolt it to the frame, because the rust will attack the magnesium before the frame of the vehicle. You learn little things.
So
like
my point is, my point was from the beginning of the show was that kind of responsibility is just not given to veterans by civilians when they get out. And instead, they give all the responsibility to these complete morons. If you're a military veteran, you probably feel me on this. These 22-year-old kids that come out of college with that piece of paper and the square hat on their head are dunces compared to, because of the experience, because the life experiences that you get from being in the military and having that kind of responsibility. And these guys get put in charge of everything because they got the paper.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg pointed that out at Harvard this past week.
Pretty much. And in the meantime, and that's fine. If you want to give all the responsibility to the guy with the cool paper, with the cool, calligraphy?
Right.
That says whatever, Yale, whatever. That's fine. You can do that. But don't sit there and say that you can't get a job here assembling aircraft engines at our aircraft engine manufacturing facility because you don't have, or you're not in this union, or you don't have the right associate's degree. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. I would have hired nothing but military veterans if I was in charge of GE.
You know something my dad said? My dad was a mechanical engineer in the engineering department, and he told me, young, growing up, he said, you know what? If I could get somebody without a college degree, but would show up on time every day, stay late if needed to, never call in sick, and just really...
Oh my gosh.
Really...
I'll take the $55,000 right now.
And really just be willing and able the entire time you're at work, I'll take that over a 4-year degree. And he's in the engineering department.
Well, you get that almost automatically with a military veteran.
Because
you will go, you will be, I cannot stress how much trouble you would be in if you just decided to take a day off.
No. Negative, Ghost Rider.
They would probably send the MPs after you.
Right. Well, in the Air Force, we lived in apartments. And dorms. The base that we were on was set up after World War II as a retirement base, basically. Yeah, it was it was prestigious at the base of a snow-capped mountain for snow skiing and whatnot. So during Desert Storm, they dropped, 50, 60, 70, 100,000 troops on this base that was only meant for 10,000.
Okay.
So there's nowhere to live. So as soon as I got my first duty time, we were given apartments.
Okay.
Go find an apartment. So living in an
Was that a ski resort town?
Yeah.
Dude, you sound like you had a pretty awesome time out there.
Yeah, I did.
Except you didn't ski.
Oh, I did.
You skied?
I went to the BX.
Yeah.
And
what's the BX for those at home?
Base exchange for Air Force, and on the, I don't know about the Marines, but the Army
We had
is
a PX, post exchange.
Post exchange for that and the Army.
It's a store.
Right. It's actually, there's a bunch of stores, like a strip mall, and there's always a Burger King.
Our PX was like, it wasn't that big.
Okay, well, in the Air Force, it's like going to Walmart with the food. Like Supermarket.
Ours is more like Walgreens.
So they had a whole separate section that sold sporting goods.
Okay.
And when you get in the military, they give you a credit card right away. So I took my credit card and went.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I bought a ski outfit.
Wow, I couldn't get a credit card at all until I was a freshman in college. This is how convoluted it is. I don't know how you did it.
But my whole point was, though, is that if I didn't show up to work, the military police would be at my apartment banging the door down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you were sick, you had to be at medical. And the medical guy had to say, oh, yeah, he needs to take the day off.
Right. Or you go
You don't
into work,
just wake up and say, I don't feel good today. You better be at medical. If you're not at medical before the time you're supposed to be at work,
oh, there's some problems.
then you're actually UA, unauthorized absence. But anyway, so my one thing I wanted to point out was I lost my train of thought. We'll just move on. So yeah, so
credit cards. I had a credit card.
Oh yeah, this is important because let's get back to the difference between.
So then why is it different in the Air Force? In the Air Force, immediately I was able to get a credit card and a loan for a brand new motorcycle.
Okay, so I show up to you had to go to Navy Federal Bank.
Okay.
And that's where you had to set up your direct deposit.
Correct. I did too. Yeah.
Okay. And while you're there, they're like, well, if you want a credit card, since you're 18, you can, if your first $500 will go on it and you can start using.
Oh, like a prepaid.
It had prepaid and you could build up credit that way.
Okay.
But that was the only way. You had to have $500. It wasn't a debit card.
Right.
It was a real credit card, but they would only give you $500 spending limit. And $500 of your own money had to be in savings in order to back it up in case you screwed them over. When I got into freshman year in college, at this point I was 22, but it didn't matter. They had kiosks set up on the campus where everybody would walk by and they would give away anything. It was like something different every day. Sometimes it was packs of M&Ms.
T-shirts.
Sometimes it was T-shirts.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was a pad of paper. Sometimes it was whatever. They were trying cigarettes. I don't know, crack. Whatever it was. They were giving away anything to try to get you to sign up for a credit card that had a $2,500. They didn't care what the deal was. And the rationale is that, wow, if you're in college, you're somebody we can trust to pay this back. You're an 18-year-old freshman in college? Oh, yeah, we're definitely giving you a $5,000. We're just going to dump $5,000 of credit on you. And you could use that to buy whatever you want. You're good to go. You're a freshman in college.
At 450% interest rate daily. Compounded daily.
Did you say rape daily?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
that's funny. That came off like that.
It sounded like that. It sounded like you had a 450% rape daily. Wow. Oh, that is common gold right there. So anyway, but it's true.
Good times.
But my point is look at our society. Our society is that if you're an 18-year-old freshman in college in teacher's college where you learn how to be a preschool teacher.
Wow.
That you have to get special certifications for, that they teach you that if you don't have, you should not be around children at all. Right. Because we have a relative that's a teacher that is highly insulted if she find out. Well, if you find out that somebody without all of her papers,
credentials.
were around children, saying stuff to them that they could learn.
Right.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
We've talked about this before. The education department on from K-12, K through 12, and then even in the colleges, universities nationwide, nothing but incubating situations that help to raise up these kids into.
Yes,
oh my God.
Mecca Stan Rose.
In order to raise them up into a thought process that we need a king or a queen, we need a dictator, we need to change the free system, the free capitalist market system that we have. For some reason, America, the way it was founded, is not good in their eyes, and they're going to teach our children that we need to go in a different direction, which is the direction that every other country in all of human history has gone, and it always goes wrong. America was set up on the basis that the government serves the people, and people in power don't like that. However, us Americans love that because it gives us our freedom.
Right.
So that's it. That's what we speak about. That's what we talk about here on Smith Radio. Our whole
and I don't
premise
want to
is
make it sound like we were just complaining about what's going on, but there's people that want to know what's going on with the problems that veterans have once they're out of the military. And I'm telling you, that's what it is. You can't give somebody all kinds of accolades and respect and responsibility is a big one, and just all an important job, a job that is making a difference in the world, and then pull the rug right out from under them. That's what happens when they get out into the civilian world. All of a sudden, all these civilians that are in charge are like, "Oh, you were in the military? Okay, well, I can't do anything for you, but did you go to college? Do you have the papers? What kind of experience do you have?" Civilians don't understand what military people have a demonstrated history of accomplishing.
Right.
And if they did, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you were in the military, I hire you in a heartbeat. And by the way, we got some important stuff for you to do," because they can do it. And they don't, it's like they can't believe what we were required to do. They just can't believe it.
Well, it's something that's totally foreign to the kids, to not only kids, but just people that have never gone into the military. It's something completely foreign. It was foreign to us. It's a completely different language. It's a different mentality. It's a different mindset. Everything is just a completely different way of life. And it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good. It's great. I loved it for the time. And now that I'm older and I look back, I'm just like, wow, I'm glad I didn't miss out on that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really glad I did it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I think we've really come a long way because there's so many programs and nonprofit organizations. What was the one that we were doing the Periscope, and we got all the way to the end, and we were at the Military Veteran Welcome Center. That was really cool because that's just a private organization. Somebody with a good amount of money burning a hole in their pocket decide they're going to do something good with it, and they're helping out veterans. And I think that's great. It's not it's not a government program. It's people that are. I'm going to try to find the picture real quick. There's people that are trying to make a difference with their own money in a private environment, a private way, which I think is great because we don't have to worry about them using government. It's always government program, and that's actually hypocritical because I think that we need to do this stuff privately. Private organizations that are doing it with either their own money, because that's what thing that they want to do, or with money that is raised by private people. Just, instead of using taxpayer money, right? You don't want to have to use taxpayer money.
And that Military Veterans Welcome Center at the Indy 500 was set up by a man named David Chapman.
Oh, okay.
And he's doing a phenomenal job helping to connect with military veterans after they leave the service. What do I do next? Where do I go next? And it's a shame, and I'm not saying it should be the government's responsibility. However,
he said website coming soon.
The transition from military to civilian life, I don't think there's a transition to. I don't think there isn't anything there. You just get out and it's over with.
Right. It's a bad transition. It's piss poor.
And now I'm talking about in the 90s. Please, folks, update me. Kekistan Rose served up into 2011.
Yeah, that's so recent.
You may have a lot more information on the transition getting out of the military than I do. But back in the 90s, negative, Ghost Rider, you're done.
Right.
Here's your last paycheck and whatever vacation you didn't use. Take care. Bye.
Well, it's a good thing we didn't get out in the 70s, because I think what you get upon completion of your service is a big spitball in your face. Seriously, so we kind of lucked out there. One thing I noticed about the Gulf War is there was this overcompensation, which is a good thing. They overcompensated on, and I don't like to use the word over. I guess you can't really overdo it, but they realized that they really, really did those Vietnam War veterans wrong, really bad. Society. Just everything, the government, society, all that. So what they did was they did a campaign of support our troops, and they had those stickers all over the place, and there was that kind of stuff during the Gulf War. And so they kind of, and then after that war was over, there was like a big celebration. We kind of won it really one-sidedly, but I'm glad they didn't go back to the liberals didn't go back to their roots of spitting on soldiers when they were returning from Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right. So Kekistan says when you're in active
duty.
Did you say
Kekistan?
Kekistan said that when you're in active duty, do not, dumbfounded by the unprofessionalism sometimes, if you transfer from active duty to reserve and become a reservist. I do have one point that I had a buddy that went to the Air National Guard.
Okay.
In the Air Force, when you wore your camouflage uniform called BDUs, battle dress uniform, we could wear a black T-shirt underneath our BDUs.
Okay.
And that's fine. As long as plain black T-shirt, that's okay. Or the green one that everybody else had. Well, he'd take his jacket off because he was hot.
Okay.
He'd have an Iron Maiden T-shirt underneath it.
Yeah, that's not good.
I'm like, dude.
But you know what? His bosses, his supervisors, his superiors in his little squadron or whatever they call it.
The guard.
Yeah. Should have said, dude, you can't be wearing that.
They probably did and said, just don't do it again. You can wear it for the rest of the day.
Maybe the rest of the week. Just don't do it next month.
This is subtle nuances, definitely. So Kekistan said, to answer your question, yes, they now force you to take 6 months of classes for transition. But most of it is useless.
Probably.
There's another government project.
Here's the problem. It's not the military's fault. The military's actually doing it correctly. The problem is civilian society. They just don't get it. They're not only missing out, but they're causing the problems that the military veterans end up having. Stop acting like that the military service is worthless to you and that you still have to go back and get that stupid paper from a $50,000 to $100,000 4-year university. It's ridiculous.
When you go to take your dog to obedience training school, the first thing they do is train the owner.
There you go.
You don't need to train a dog. Dog is smart.
Point.
The dog is smart. Ain't nothing wrong with the dog.
Yeah, the owners are always the ones that screwing up, right? That's what's going on in America. It's not the military. It's not the government. It's not the veterans. It's society. It's civilian society. They just are really blowing it. They're really, really screwing up our veterans by treating them as if their service doesn't. What's the one thing you hear all the time? You'll know this as soon as I say it. The most important thing on that they're looking for when they're hiring on a resume, more so than any of your schooling, they're looking for people with experience.
Right.
And why are they looking for people with experience? Part of it is have you demonstrated that you can actually do what we're wanting you to do? That's one thing.
Right.
But also, do you have some sort of a history of leadership? Can we count on you to take leadership and to be confident in your
roles? Or even obey
also?
orders. If I ask you to do something, are you going to, do I have to
do you show up?
Yeah.
Do you show up?
Yeah.
These are the things that you can count on with a military veteran.
and the past 8 years, the destruction of our society and the unemployment rate skyrocketing amongst 16 to 25-year-olds. This is the time, 16, 17, 19, 20, this is the time that those are the individuals that get the minimum wage jobs to learn from a company how to behave, how to act, how to raise up. Now all of a sudden they're 21 years old, never had a job before. We got problems.
Right. Absolutely.
We got a generation that's unequipped.
I'm hoping, I told this whole story to a friend who claims, it's a new friend, so I need to learn more about her, but she claims that she could possibly maybe figure out ways to set up to where I can actually tell these kinds of stories and these ideas to Congress. And I think that would be important. I do believe that I haven't heard anybody come up with this exact explanation of what's going on with our veterans and what's going on with the suicide rate of 22 a day and other things that are related. The depression that kind of results in stuff like homelessness.
Right.
You see all these people, and I think that some of them are lying, but not all of them, where they say Vietnam War veteran on their cardboard, please, food. Yeah.
No.
It's very possible that they did serve.
I got lucky because when I got out, I had parents who had a house with no kids living in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a room for me to land, a place to land, whilst I figured out how to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I got lucky in that sense. If I didn't have that and I got out, daggone it. What do you do? I need an apartment. I need a hotel room, motel. What do you? I need a phone. I need this. Well,
might be sleeping in the car for a couple days
or
under a bridge.
Maybe.
That's probably how some of it ends up. But some of the people I noticed that are homeless that claim to be vets are a little bit on the older side. So I think that what they realized was that people are not taking what they were responsible for in the military seriously when they're trying to get a job, and then they just end up with nothing. So just like Sylvester Stallone said, he said when he made that movie that, and we're talking about First Blood again, that he had tons and tons of military veterans come up to him and thank him for being the voice that and saying the things that they wanted to say but never could or never knew how to say. So there's definitely some truth behind those words, and it dovetails perfectly into my theory on what's causing all this. So my solution is we got to educate people who've never been in the military, who have leadership roles, such as business owners is a big one, employers of any kind of employer. These people need to realize that you cannot believe the kind of responsibility that these kids had.
Well, there have been multiple job interviews that I've had in the past where the owner of the company or the manager of the company was in the military, served in the military.
That helps.
Some folks. And it helps. It's not nepotism. It's that he or she knows that
you don't want to assume
that there's a level of expectation that they can have, that they know that, well, I know if he's been in for 4 years and he did this, and this, I know there's a level of responsibility he had to have had if he was in whatever branch of the military. The guy that I currently work for now, he was in the Navy back, 45 years ago.
Okay.
So
it's like the Vietnam era.
He talks about it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It's too much sometimes.
Well, it's because it's such a,
it shaped your life.
Yeah. When I was in college, there were some classes, because I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to math. I'm a little bit, I'm definitely eccentric on the math side of it. So there's some things that I remember learning that I thought was pretty fascinating, pretty interesting, but nothing has been seared in my brain like my experiences in the military. And so it definitely had a lifelong impact. And these were good lessons I've learned, or good things that I've learned as far as experiences that would help me in any job that I got.
Right.
So,
and when we talk about being thankful for the veterans who have served in the past, and today being Memorial Day, or tomorrow being Memorial Day, go back and read Sir Francis Scott Key's the reason why he wrote
Star Spangled
Banner. The reason behind it, the story behind the Star Spangled Banner, and the notion that the bombs bursting in air, the rockets' red glare, and the bombs bursting in air, giving us proof through the night that our flag was still there. They were watching as the flag was still standing in the middle of the night because the bombs and the fire that was going off, so that they actually saw the flag. I mean, it's an emotional story with our original founding fathers, the original military, the conscripts. I mean, just the ragtag team, Kentucky Long Rifles. Just the guys that just were hunters that would hunt for food, that came to the call to fight for their freedom, to fight against tyranny, to fight against having to pay for somebody else somewhere else in a far-off land somewhere else.
Right. Well, here's a good one for you. There is a bridge project, and you've probably seen this. Everybody listening today has got this issue in their town. I guarantee it, where you have something like this going on. We had a bridge that is in a super, super high traffic area that goes over a highway. And the reason it's so high traffic is because there's only a couple places in this whole area, this whole part of town, that you can cross the highway. And this is like the busiest. So they need to remove this bridge and replace it with one that's wider. They want to add 2 lanes to it. So they want to make it a lot wider, a lot bigger. So they do it one side at a time. They tear down the one side of the bridge and turn that 2-laner into 3 lanes. And then they tore down the other side while the other one was being used, because they can't just do it all at once. This is too high traffic. It's got to be going at all times, right?
Right.
They're finally to the point, and it's been about 3 or 4 years now, maybe. They're finally to the point where they're just about to open up that second half to make it one full giant 6-lane bridge. This is the one that goes, this is North Bend that goes over 74. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
It's been what, 4 years? Maybe?
I don't go that way ever.
Well, once it opens, it'll probably be pretty open. It won't be so congested. Okay. You know what my dad said? That is just eye-opening. He said, my father's generation won World War II in a shorter amount of time than it took for them to remove and replace that bridge.
Oh, man.
And I'm telling you, for all of you out there who have a local construction project that's taking more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you could say the same thing. That our grandparents' generation won World War II before that stuff. What the hell's taking so long? You know why? Because they don't have any military veterans on that project. That's why.
Needs something. Yeah, needs something. So for all those who have served and died, for all those families who have lost, a son, a daughter, a mother, a brother, a father, and serving our country in any capacity, whether it be in active duty combat or, unfortunately at times it happens, friendly fire, whatever capacity. We thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. You've made a greater me personally, it's just me talking. Those folks I feel have made a greater sacrifice than I did. I just served.
Right.
I did what I did, but I
feel
didn't.
I feel that.
I didn't lose any life, and
I almost lost my arm, but that was my own stupidity.
And if you listen to the beginning of the show, you just ruined my emotional.
I'm sorry, man. I'm
love
sorry.
for y'all.
Somebody thanked me for almost losing my arm.
Wow. So we're gonna cut the show a little bit early tonight. We've had a huge day. It was an incredible day at the Indy 500. Go to Fox Breaking News and they'll tell you who won. What was his name?
Oh, the Japanese guy.
Exactly.
The rising sun has come.
He said rising sun.
Is it? Yeah. The rising sun. Yeah.
You said the rising sun. Okay.
Yeah, that's Japan.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Tsukumoto.
Sako.
Oh, yeah, Sako.
Sato.
Sato. Won, and it was amazing.
I'm glad.
It was there at the very, very end. He was robbed one other time.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
He
I don't know if it's robbed. It's just somebody kind of did a funny move on him, and he wiped out on the last lap.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So thank you all. Please share us on Facebook. A lot of new things to come. We're adding video. We'll be doing a lot of other things.
You'll be able to see our pretty faces.
And we are being invited to more things. More doors are opening for us. So please, mentioning us to anyone you may know might open up another door for us so that we can reach out to other people. Thank you, folks.
With unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.